And you know, we're talking today on this theme of making things happen, but having the right data to make your campaigns work is very, very important. And I know you're actually going to be thrilled with Mailmen. Todd.
Thank you very much. Is this thing working? Is there sound coming out of this? I'm sorry. Gee. Well, you'll have to listen to me anyhow. I, first of all, have to apologize. The head of marketing at Market Reach, Emma Springham, was going to be here today, but unfortunately she's had a family emergency type of thing, so she's left me on my own, which means you've got me for 30 minutes, which will either hopefully bring a smile to your face and maybe a little bit of things that are useful, or you'll just say, God, I wish I could have some coffee. I do swear to my colleagues I won't swear, okay? And I want you to make sure that you write this down. Rich, please, because I have a terrible inclination to have a potty mouth. Now, how many of you know what Market Reach is? Aww. How many of you have worked with Market Reach? Hey, how many of you have downloaded reports from Market Reach? Okay, look, folks, do me a favor here because I need some energy. Would you all please repeat after me? Market Reach, come on, Market Reach helps make the case for mail by providing free, big word free market research and expertise. Thank you. If you all just write that down on the form at the end, okay, that we've created some awareness for market research. Why? Because market research is not selling you anything at all. What we are doing is providing you with vital evidence as to why mail has an incredibly important role in our digital world, okay? Now, when I say evidence, I mean not only ROI figures, not only return on investment over time issues, but also really strong market research that can actually help you when you're going to talk to that marketing director or that marketing manager or that CMO or whoever you're getting to say there is a justification for this expenditure. Now, I'm not going to try to sell all those books back there. Why? Because they're free. All right? You can download them for free. You can see the case histories. You can see the evidence about what happens in the brain when you use two senses rather than just one to absorb a message. And by the way, that was what I was talking about in terms of smell. Add a third sense to it, memory encoding. It goes in faster, it goes in deeper, and it works. These are facts. These are scientific facts, nothing to do with anything that I'm trying to sell you. Okay? Now, Emma was going to talk to you a bit about why it was that an omni-channel marketer who worked for one of the biggest banks in the country and had a vast budget moved into promoting marketing mail. Now, I can't tell you that story because I don't know what her story was, but I can tell you that she had the same experience I did when people heard that she was going to work for direct marketing, and it looked something like, that's what my friends did. You're doing what? It's not sexy. You don't get to go to shoots to Lands. I can't stand it. It's driving me crazy. You don't get to go to Lanzarote. You don't get to do all those fun, cool things I did in Above the Line. No. What we get to do is measure how much money we make for our clients. Okay? And that, for me, is kind of exciting to see something that goes out. And I was fortunate enough to work on a number of charity campaigns, which I'm not embarrassed about, and to make millions of pounds for charities, not just goodwill. And you know what? I will be proud of that till the day I die, because print works. Print works. Now, in the reports that we have available online, we talk about a lot of different issues. How print, mail in particular, moves around the home, how it's shared, how it's taken to work, how it goes with the mobile, how it drives not only current ROI, but consideration of product in the long term, sharing, online activity, shop activity. There's a lot of evidence there that it's for you to use as and when appropriate. This particular project, which is our latest one, which has just come out, okay, was asking a question very simply, which is, in all of the research that we've presented so far, we never drew a distinction by age. We never said young people do this and old people do that. It just never came out of the data, and I felt really bad about this because I suddenly realized I must have missed it. I didn't see it. Where was the data? I didn't do a basic piece of analysis. Okay? So we thought we really have to understand how different ages of people, and we started with ages. We moved to life stages, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But in particular, we wanted to look at the tech savvy, okay, of all ages, people who really, really spend a lot of time using their digital technology for pretty much everything they did. So the assumption was, in worst case scenario, the millennials are all digital, they're growing up, we'll all be out of a job, we're doomed. No. What we did to understand that is we used a lot of the quantitative, independently created data that we got from previous studies, some of which are back there. We then used a couple of qualitative research agencies to go out and talk to some different life stages, and then we used TGI and touch points, which are, and TGI and touch points, people know these? Some of you do. Okay, they are not, it's basically a huge organizations which collect vast amounts of data, which are used by most media planners and a lot of big brands, because they ask hundreds of questions. So what type of food did you buy? Which newspaper did you read? Which radio stations do you lead? How many hours a day are you on the internet? So these are completely independent studies. Touchpoints does the same thing, but it does it by hour. So you can actually look at what people are doing exactly at every time of the day. So these are independent studies. Now, my whole presentation is 2 charts. I've actually got about 10, but there are only 2 worth taking home. And they are the charts that I think that hopefully will help you when you are talking to people actually make the case for Mayo. Our assumption was, gee, there will be differences by life stages, by ages. We went back through all the data. There was nothing there. There was nothing there, nothing consistent, nothing that made sense, a couple of little trend bits. So I reanalyzed it, you thinking about millennials versus baby boomers and this versus that, and we finally decided, no, what we're going to do is working on life stages, okay? Because although we could see something going on, there was too much confusion, too much chatter on the network to really get a sense of what this was. So these are the 7 life stages we used. Fledglings. Anybody got a fledgling, i.e. a kid who hasn't left home? Right? Okay. Right. I got 29, 25, 23. I keep trying to throw them out of the house. They keep coming back. All right? They are the fledglings. Sharers, my 25-year-old, some of the time, lives with his mates in a flat in town because they can't afford the rent, and they do this and they do that. Sometimes he comes back, but he's basically living on his own, paying his own rent, paying his own utilities, doing that type of thing. Couples are self-obvious. Young families are families where the oldest child is not yet in secondary school, okay? Whereas older families are where one of the children, at least, is in secondary school, all right? Now, empty nesters and older retirees, and Bill and I were just having this conversation outside, which is just so true. An empty nester, by our definitions using TGI, is an individual or couple, because sometimes they're divorced, sometimes they're not, who had children living in the family home, and those children have now left, okay? Basically are economically standing on their own feet, but that's a bit of a variable these days given the house prices in urban centers, okay? One person is still earning economically active, okay? So in my case, I'm still economically active. I have empty nesters in and out. I have children in and out, but I look at the future and say, okay, Brexit, it's all right, I'll just work another 5 years. I'll keep earning income. I'm not limited to the price of living as determined by some pension fund. And older retirees are an individual or a couple where no one is in paid employment. They are living off a pension and or investment scheme. Now, for those of you who've worked these markets, the difference in attitude here is just huge. There is no over 55 market. That bothers me. Because my mother and I are both over 55. She lived through the Depression and the Great War. I lived through Vietnam and marijuana. We're not the same, okay? We have different attitudes about language. We have different attitudes about life. So putting us in the same box is a bit of a challenge, Saga, if any of you are here, because I'm not going to read the same magazine my mom reads. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work too well. So we used these to try to get some ideas. This covers about 88% of the population. The only people who aren't covered are singles living on their own. And the reason we didn't use them is because in previous research we saw that the number of readers of a letter is not 1. Right? In the same way the newspapers would say the average number of readers of a newspaper may be 1.2 or 1.4, the average number of readers of a letter is a calculation that we're now spending let's just say, a 7-figure sum to look at actually how many people on average see any particular piece of mail. Right? So I'll share it with my wife. My wife will take it on the dog walking club, and she might share it with somebody else. And we have evidence of this. This is hard-nosed quantitative evidence as well as qualitative evidence. So we really wanted to get that sharing going. The other people who aren't included are people in prison, but they don't buy very much, at least as far as I know, or at least not legal channels. So here's our groups. The 2 big charts. 1, what this chart says is very simple. On average, for this group representing 88% of the population, people claimed, on average, 26.7% of them claimed, on average, to have responded in terms of buying or ordering from a piece of addressed direct mail in the previous 12 months. Now, Rory told us that people in research lie. They do. I agree with that. But they lie in the same way. Okay? So whether that actual figure is 50% of people actually did it, or whether it's 3% actually did it, I don't care. All I care is that I get a base number, which is an average. Let's call that 100, an index of 100. What you can see over here, gee, surprise, surprise, older retirees claim to have bought or ordered more. Doesn't surprise me. We all know that, don't we? Empty nesters, yeah, okay, fine. Hold on a minute, what's going on here? Younger families at 29.6 are more than older families and more than empty nesters. And in the research, we go into depth in why. Anybody here a young family, i.e. children under the, you are, okay. How much was there to learn when you had that first kid, right? A lot. Wow, suddenly I have all that my product set is, okay, I buy clothes and I go out dancing and I do this and now I have to get into what's a nanny and what's a nappy and what's a baby cream, and you suddenly have all this stuff to learn. First school, oh my gosh, school uniforms, where do I get them? The need for information is huge, the need for new product and service providers. Did you make your first will when your baby was born? Okay, well you're good, because I only made mine when my babies got born. Oh yeah, no, I do. So suddenly I have new financial service needs. Being a Yank, even though my kids are older, I put up an education fund. Why? Well, if they want to go to school and university, I need $250,000. So I'll put it in. So you suddenly go into this whole thing. The other thing that's really interesting here, and the thing that this area, this Soho, this ad-land world doesn't understand is that top figure. 23.3% of people who are fledglings living at home with their parents said they bought or ordered something from direct mail in the previous 12 months, okay? Rory said it beautifully, and I won't say it better than he. They don't get mail. So when they get a piece, it's new, it's exciting, it's refreshing, it's really quite different, okay? So we'll go through the 2 groups of fledglings and sharers in some detail. I will not bore you with the totality of it, but the important thing here is to realize that you can tell your clients with confidence. These are TGI numbers, touch points numbers, they are industry recognized numbers, that direct mail works against all groups. But they respond differently. Okay? Now, what's fascinating to me is, okay, bottom line blue, surprise, surprise, older retirees, 14% of those who said they responded, 14% of the total amount said they responded by post. It's only 5% down at the other side. That's what you'd expect, right? Okay, it makes sense. Same with the telephone. Okay, that's their medium, their channel in their omni-channel world to respond to you. But hold on a minute. There's still 15% of them who were responding, by going online via PC. Okay, my wife, I won't say her age, I will say in age terms, she does everything by tablet, all right? Having said that, if you look at the guys who are real kings of PCs and tablets, it's the young moms. And in the full report, there's a quote, not mine, from BabyNet saying they did a survey on this, and they said young mums these days are born with a baby in one hand and a smartphone in the other. It's this ability. I don't know. I'm sorry, but I apologize if it's. But that's the way it works these days. So actually, you're really getting this. So the point is, there are strong trends in certain ways, in particular in the area where they respond. But the fact is that omni-channel, the way we use it, is what we send out. Now, the consumer says it's the way I respond. I may respond using an average of 3 or 4 different channels. So you send me a mail, I may go online just to search for you. What's your website like? Then I'll go and take it to my son or my friend or my daughter or my father. Say, what do you think about it? I'll ask somebody about it at work. I'll telephone you and order. They are omni-channeling their world, and print is driving that. So those 2 charts are the essence of this whole thing. Let me run through very quickly some of the top end of the detail we've got in the books. So if we look for a second at fledglings, around 3 million people, that figure is going up and down depending on house prices all the time. It's about how can you live in London at this age, you stay home, okay? 52% of them are 18 to 24, but there's a younger bias to that. So 16 to 18-year-olds is where the majority of the rest of these are. 23% bought. 38% agree they're more likely to look at mail that is printed on high-quality materials. Now, in the research, we talk about this because when you're in that age group, and boy, my son's gone through it, everything is about who you are in relation to other people. It's your social status. Oh, I can't go out in that shirt, my friends would laugh. It's all about how you look and feel and fit. And therefore, the quality of a print, the creativeness of an envelope is important to them because it's self-identification. It's, yes, this is for me, right? 32% more likely to trust information in print than on the internet, okay? Now, someone I was talking to not long ago in one of these presentations said, that's ridiculous. I said, how many of you believe everything you read on the social network pages you visit? Okay? Do you believe when so-and-so says, I'm having a great time in Ibiza and everything's wonderful, that's really true? And you talk to young millennials about it, and they say, no, of course not. You talk to older people about it, and now they're talking about a psychological problem that's emerging because people are feeling their own lives are lousy because they do believe that everything that everybody says on those social networks is true. The fact is the millennials know that print, I have in my hand a piece of paper, has a substance to it, a tactility to it that seems to give a greater sense of believability to it. Briefly, mail is novel. They don't get it. So really, it's really quite exciting to stand out. The problem, however, is they're not looking for it. So mail comes in, we put it on the table, they're all white envelopes. There's 2 in there for my sons, but they don't look for them because they look like all the other white envelopes. There's not an envelope there saying, hi for young person, this is more interesting. This is something you want. So you've got to stand out. It has brand resonance because it is a more trusted media. It has functionality. What they're looking for is, why should I look at this mail? Because it's got a coupon. Because it gets me into a place I want to go, or a discount on something I want. It engages and stimulates because it's not different. And mail with relevant design value is particularly appreciated because it needs to reflect not only the brand, but their relationship or desired relationship with that brand. Some tips: make it clear that the item is for them, not their parents. Make it clear what to do. Believe it or not, you and I might open a letter and go, okay, fine, so I have to call that number and I have to have this URL, or I have to have this URN, or whatever it happens to be. They don't. They haven't got the experience of it, right? So in the same way that they design a user experience on a site for somebody like me, we have to help them understand what they need to do. How do they take advantage of the offer? Make it easy to respond by all channels, because they will all use all channels, and leverage that tangibility. This is the one group of people, if you have a high-value product or you're trying to build brand resonance over time, where I would be starting to look at more interesting quality materials, whether it's 3D, whether it's sound, whether it's anything else that you've got, but begin to talk to creative directors and agency targeting youth about these opportunities, about actually cutting through and making it sing for that audience. And you know what? Because no one else is doing it, your actual share of voice will be huge, and therefore your penetration, and hopefully following on that from your ROI. All right, everybody's getting hot. So I'll wing through these real quick. I did that. There we go. A little bit more about sharers. The one reason I wanted to spend a few minutes on this, how much time have I got, John? 2 minutes? I'm all right? Okay. The reason I wanted to bring this one up is this is a really interesting one. It's a fairly urban phenomena, but it addresses something that you mentioned earlier about address versus non-address, which this was a fascinating finding, blew us all away. Okay, 1.9 million people. I think that's an understatement, but this population is so mobile. They're out over there for 4 months, they move back. They go over there for 6 months, they go back. Some of them are long-term, but a lot of these flat shares could even be university semesters, so they're moving around a lot. 51% are 18 to 24-year-olds, so a little bit moving towards the older side of this age group. 22% bought or ordered as address for adult male, 21.7%. The lowest number. Two things. They don't get any addressed mail, right? The group 15 to 24 gets 4% of all marketing mail that is sent. 4%. And yet they're responding at 23%. So actually, if you look at the algorithm that goes around it, which I couldn't even figure out, they're actually more responsive than the older people because they're getting a lot less mail, right? The problem is, for the fledglings, you don't mail them because they're too young to be on a database. They haven't engaged enough. They may not be on the census. And for these people, because you don't know where they are. They keep moving. I get mail for all of my kids in my house, despite the fact that my 29-year-old hasn't lived at home for 7, 8 years. Right? So it's usually tax demands, but be that as it may, it all comes to me. So the fact that only 21.7% of them bought, given they only got 4%, sounds a little bad. Then you figure it in, they're not getting addressed mail, and then they are 75% more likely to buy or order using a door drop. Okay? That actually makes up for that entire shortfall from the other thing. Why? Because that's what you give them. That's what we give them. We give them door drops because we don't know their names. We know the one person who's paying the utility bill, or the one person who's on some other, the Sky license. The rest of them, we don't know, but they're going to use door drops. And it was fascinating to us to see this one particular group being so positive and so responsive. I mean, plus 75% is huge. And by the way, when they get mail, they feel real assured about it. So this is a great group. It's relatively small, but they're building brands for the future. And in the reports, we talk about how when a brand makes it with these guys at this stage, it's because it fits, again, their social presence. I'll go through this quickly. A lot of the same observations. Brand and style are important. Value is very important. This group is one of the most financially hurting of all because they're on starter salaries and mom and dad are no longer paying all the bills. My kids have all come back to me at one point or another and said, how much does it cost? Just to heat the house? Just to pay for the water? Wait a second, Dad, yeah, son. Guess what, when you leave the shower running? Yeah, that's me, right? So they're really quite tight, therefore value is important. Door drop's really useful. A lot of communality, and this is where the sharing issue comes up so spectacularly, which is, oh, here's a door drop into my flat of 5 people. It's for Deliveroo. Let's put it on the refrigerator. Everyone kind of gets involved in it. They talk to their friends about a huge amount of sharing going on, more opportunities to see, more penetration, more income. And mail starts to move out. And again, this is where people begin, because they're commuting, a lot of these people, not by car, but by train or bus. This is where those people you see, can I just ask one question? In your normal work bags, would there be any pieces of mail? What bags you bring to work? No one has mail in their bags? A couple little nods here. Yeah, because you do. You have to pay that bill. You put it in your thing. I'll do it at break time. The interesting thing is how large that percentage of people is. That's a piece of research we'll be talking about in September. Okay, so finally, some tips. I'll leave it there, but I would certainly say door drop should be part of it. So, what I really, and I know I'm being silly and I know I'm being overly dramatic, but because it's so important to me, because it's your industry. It's our industry. We have huge amounts of information to give you for free. We don't care what delivery system you use. We don't care if it's Whistle or something completely different or packaging. What we all want to do is have the evidence, to have the negotiations to say, this is why printed material is valuable. So I really do strongly commend that you go to the site. There's short reports, there's long reports, there's presentations, there's videos. It's all there for you to use. It's all research that I personally say, I can absolutely believe it because I've done the right thing by it. I don't play that game. Neither does Market Reach. Because if it doesn't work when you follow our advice, then you won't become customers of ours. All right? It's good quality material, and I strongly commend it to you. Thank you.
Todd, just want to ask you a quick question.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, you've got the web address up there, but if I really wanted to engage to get access to this free data, what do I need to do?
Okay. Rich, we have a group of people called media specialists. What they are is a group of people, some from the print industry, some from the agency industry, some from other different places, but they are not salespeople. They are people who work with partners and major clients and are happy to work with organizations like this. We work with GI, for example, do lots of stuff for them. We've done some stuff for HP. We work with you for free to help you with your clients. Rich will be here, you'll be here at the break. Rich is one of our media specialists, one of our lead guys. In terms of getting the stuff off the web, that's all the reports and stuff. In terms of getting people into the organizations, Rich is your man back there, and I strongly commend, because these guys are quality. I've been out with them, and they don't suddenly hard sell on blitz and so on and so forth. They have the expertise to talk to people who either haven't done it before and are afraid, or want to do it better, more cost effectively. And I strongly commend them to you.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Okay.
My pleasure.
Brilliant. Once again, Todd, everybody.